So you've gone to all the trouble of planting your grapevines, and now you're starting to see little clusters of grapes forming. It's exciting, right? Well, you're not done yet. You still have one thing to do, which is learn how to trim your grapevines. We've been getting a tremendous amount of rainfall lately, so as you can see, my grapevines have just grown way too dense, and I've been putting off my summer pruning, but today is the day. I'm going to do it, and I will show you how I do this. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to have a green thumb, even if you weren't born with one. Now let's get to it. I've broken this up into 4 simple steps. Step number 1, trim back any shoots without fruit to the thickest part of the vine. This will allow more water and nutrients to go to the remaining part of your grapevine. So here's a good example of a side shoot we can remove because there are no grape clusters growing along it. So I'm just going to snip it where it meets the thickest part of the grapevine. Here is an example of a grapevine that you don't want to trim, a side shoot here. Do you see this big cluster of grapes that are attached to it? We want to keep that one, so don't trim that one. Now I'm going to finish the remaining part of step 1 by trimming the rest of the side shoots. Okay, step number 2. So step number 2 requires a lot of self-discipline. This is the kind of painful part, but you need to remove the small bunches of grapes. So I'm talking about the ones that have maybe 4 to 6 grapes on them. So like this one right here. As you can see, this one's already starting to rot out a bit, so it is a good one to take off, but there you go. But yeah, so these little mini clusters you want to take off and remove. The reason you want to do that is because that way the plant will devote more energy to the larger clusters, like these, to produce big, beautiful grapes. Okay. Step number 3 is you want to remove any dead or diseased leaves because you don't want these diseases spreading to the rest of your grapevine. Get all of it. There we go. Also, make sure to not put them in a like in your compost pile. Make sure to put them in your garbage bin so that way they don't go into your compost and you're not giving these diseases to other plants. So we have trimmed back our side shoots. I've removed the dead and diseased leaves from the plant, and I've taken off the small clusters of grapes. And you can see how it's really opened up here. So I'm really happy with this. I'm confident that these grape bunches are going to get nice air circulation. And now this brings us to the final step, step number 4, which is you want to identify the side shoots that are growing near your remaining grape bunches, and you want to trim them back so that there's only maybe like 1 or 2 sets of leaves that are covering them. The reason that you do this is because if the grapes don't get enough sunlight and air, they won't develop properly. I will say that if you live in a climate where sun exposure is really high and the grapes tend to sunburn, wait until the grapes start to turn a little or have a little bit of a tinge of color to them. So as you can see with these grapes, they are not ready yet, but just wait till they develop the teeniest hint of color until you trim the grape leaves back, because then that way you'll know that they're ready. Here's a good example. This leaf here, it has some holes in it. It's not the prettiest leaf, but I think that was due to something, munching on them, maybe a caterpillar or something. I found one earlier when I was pruning. I am not going to remove it because it does cover these grape bunches and otherwise they wouldn't have any protection at all. So I'm going to leave that one there. So all of this foliage came off of one single grapevine. So I have my work cut out for me, and just think about how much energy it takes to produce and sustain all of this foliage. And all of that energy is now being put back into the plant to grow and harden off the remaining grape bunches, and it's going to be really great for your grapevine. Whew, it is hot, but I'm done and I feel a lot better about my grapes that are behind me. Let's go over the 4 steps together to review. So step number 1, you want to identify side shoots that aren't growing any grapes and trim those back to the thickest part of the grapevine. Step number 2, you want to remove any small clusters of grapes. Step number 3, remove any dead or diseased leaves. And finally, step number 4, you want to trim and prune back so that there's only 1 or 2 sets of leaves covering each bunch of grapes. Trimming your grapevines improves the quality of your grapes, which is really the end game. Are you growing tomatoes now too? And are the deer eating them? Well, join me in this next video that's coming up here, and I will show you how to protect your tomatoes without the use of any pesticides or sprays. I'll meet you over there.